Hey friends, Ari Koinuma here. Thanks for checking in. So today is the third episode in our series of looking at how to put together a home recording studio. So far we had an introduction and overview, and then we talked about the room and the audio treatment. And now today we're going to look at two of the most important technical or technology based decisions. One is your computer and digital audio workstation software, DAW or DAW, and audio interface. So let's talk about the computer and DAW first. It's a very important decision, this software decision. It is because, as I said in the beginning, recording studio is a musical instrument, and you will be primarily interacting with your computer and your digital audio workstation software. So it's really important that you feel comfortable with what you're using makes sense to you, and it also makes financial sense as well over the long run, because switching software is not actually trivial concern, especially after you start using one of the software and want to go to another one. There is not a really convenient or easy way to transfer productions from one software to another. There is a standard format called OMF, but it's really not very well supported. So whatever sort of songs you recorded in one software, it's really kind of stuck there. Now, if you know some things that I don't know, of course you let me know. But in my experience, it's not that common to go back to my past productions and maybe do like a remix, or maybe do like a vocalist karaoke mix or something like that. But it definitely happens, and having backward access to your catalog is not a trivial concern. So in the other words, what you decide to choose for your software is an important one, and it deserves time and careful consideration before you commit to getting a particular software. Now, not all DAWs are equal, and here's where your intention of what kind of music you want to record really comes into picture. It obviously goes without saying that if software is at all available to try, you should try them. If you have friends who have this or that software, you should ask them if you can play with it a little bit on their computers. Different software have different history, and therein lies different strengths as well. Generally speaking, the longer the history the software has with a particular sort of area or subset of audio production, it tends to be better at doing that. So for example, here are some of the major areas of audio production. Like, first of all, it's recording and audio editing. I might lump into one area. Another one is MIDI sequencing. The third one is looping. Another one to consider is like a scoring to video. If I don't know if you plan to do that, but if you're wanting to make music for some kind of other video or footage or something like that, that's certainly a concern. And different software have different ways of supporting them, and different sort of degree of maturity in terms of how well they support these workflows. So you definitely want to know which of these things are your concern, and look at software that obviously has a strength in that area. For me, I started using this software. I'm kind of old school, so I started back when Cakewalk was more of a MIDI sequencer and didn't really have much of a recording capabilities. So my history is that I used Cakewalk until I switched to Mac, and then since then I've been using Logic, which in the hindsight I'm kind of kicking myself, because those are two are like now the only sort of operating system specific software that there is, and now I'm kind of stuck using Apple computers, and I really my computer is old right now. I really need to upgrade. This is a 2015 MacBook Pro, and I plan to upgrade soon, but I really thought long and hard about switching to Windows computer. There are some things about Apple computers that I'm not too thrilled with at the moment. Although I probably will end up staying with Mac for the time being. And the big thing that happened recently is that on Logic's 10.5 they added a feature called Drummer. And Drummer, to my knowledge, is a deal breaker and differentiator for me with Logic, because it really creates this lifelike drum grooves with adjustable feel, the humanness of groove that is really not available, as far as I can tell, anywhere else. And like I said, used to sequence drums, MIDI drums, note by note, and I still probably will in some songs, and I'm pretty good at it at this point. But MIDI sequencing is really important feature for me, and to have now a major feature that directly caters to that and make it faster and more human-like is like totally make or break kind of issue for me. So I'm like, wow, good job, Apple. You just convinced me that I have to stick with you. But if Apple or Windows, if that's a concern, like if you ever see yourself going back and forth, obviously sticking with a software that is available on both is a concern. I would say that Pro Tools on Mac is like the industry standard, so a lot of the professional studios have them. So having compatibility with professional studios might be a feature, but the downside of that direction is that plugins and related things they just all seem a little more expensive and difficult to get into with Pro Tools. Now, Pro Tools users might shoot me for saying this. That's just my personal impression. On the other hand, if you do Windows and if you do VST compatible software like Cubase, Windows and VST combination is where a lot of freeware plugins are, and some of these freeware plugins are actually really, really good. So that's one thing I missed when I came over to Apple, is that there are some freeware plugins on audio units on Apples as well, but not as many. So if you want to, affordability is a concern, Windows and VST might be kind of fun place to start. Okay, switching gears to audio interfaces. So audio interfaces are these external devices that you need to get with your computer that will have the appropriate inputs and outputs, so that you can obviously capture the audio input and then you can listen to it through studio monitors. The important thing to consider are the number of simultaneous inputs that you need and what kind of inputs they are. The headphone outs, depending on your needs, you might want more than one, although there are always ways to add more headphone outs. And then speaker outs too. You might not want to be stuck with just a single pair of speakers. You might want multiple ones, for example. So these sort of ins and outs are probably the most important things to consider for audio interfaces. Now, something that might be confusing for somebody who's new to this field is that inputs and the number of mic preamps are not the same thing. So one interface might say, I have 10 inputs, but then if you look at the device, there are only 2 microphone inputs. So then all the other 8s might have to be line inputs or something like that. And you can only use 2 microphones at once, right? So do be sure that you have in mind, what is the maximum number of inputs and what kind of inputs are they when you're evaluating audio interfaces. The other things to watch out for are stability of the drivers in the operating system that you choose. Obviously, it will be a major drag if you choose an audio interface that has really buggy or unstable drivers for your operating system and they crash, or they might have lag, or you might have unresolvable latency issues. Obviously, these are all creativity killers, right? I've been using Focusrite unit for last several years and it's been really stable on my Apple computer. So I've been really pleased with that. But you can do research on any major manufacturer's audio interfaces through forums and such, and get a feel for how sort of stable their drivers are in a given operating system. And related to that, you also might want to, this is kind of obvious, but you might also want to pay attention to how responsive is the tech support of the manufacturer, and things like how often, how quickly do they come out with new updates to the drivers and related software. That will, sway you for one manufacturer, one device over another when you're making a decision. Now, obviously, audio being something that is converting an analog sound to a digital data, the quality of the audio is something that interests people. However, that being said, as long as I would say you don't get the dirt cheap, the most cheapest audio interface, a lot of the affordable audio interfaces are actually really good these days. Or I would say that if you're new to the home recording arena, you probably won't be able to tell the difference between this mic preamp or that mic preamp, or this digital audio converter versus that DAC. The difference is not great. They all sound really clean. They all sound accurate. The cleanness and accuracy also translates to sounding kind of sterile and boring, but I will discuss that in a future episode in terms of what you can do to deal with that. So I would say the primary concerns for audio interface are the ins and outs and then the stability. Alright, that's all I have for you today. Thanks again for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know and I'll do my best to respond. Alright, I'll see you next time.